On Christmas Eve, I saw my daughter laughing at a lavish party with her husband's family. Under the photo, she wrote, "Finally found my real family. Thank you to the best father figure in my life." I stared at the screen, knowing those words weren't meant for me, the father who had supported her for years. I didn't call. I didn't argue. I simply opened my banking app and froze every payment I had been making. Within the first hour, I had 120 missed calls. Thank you for being here. It means more than you know. I want to hear from you right now. What country or city are you joining us from today? Leave it in the comments below. Every answer reminds me why we built this community here on Dad Family Revenge. Note: this story includes fictional elements added for educational purposes. Names and settings are not drawn from any specific person or place, but the truth at the center of it is something we can all recognize. My name is Calloway. I am 64 years old, and I spent the last 3 years paying for a life that had quietly stopped making room for me. I found out on Christmas Eve. The kitchen in my house on Delaney Road has a window that faces the backyard, and on winter nights you can see the tree line if the moon is right. Eleanor used to sit at the far end of the table, the seat closest to the stove, because she said cold air follows a man through the door every time he comes in from the shop. She sat there for 28 years. The chair has been empty for 4. I had made coffee. The good kind, the kind I only make when I think something worth sitting still for is about to happen. I had wrapped 2 presents earlier that week, a remote control truck for Owen, a art set for Lily, and they were stacked by the door with name tags I had written in my best handwriting. I was waiting for the video call. Diane had texted at noon, "Call you tonight, Dad." Kids are excited. That was the last message I received from her that day. By 8 o'clock, the coffee had gone cold. I poured it out and stood at the sink for a moment, looking at the backyard, at the shape of the old workshop I built the summer Owen was born. My chest felt the way it does before a storm moves, in that particular pressure behind the sternum that is not quite pain and not quite nothing. My phone lit up on the counter. Not a call, a notification. Diane had posted a new photo album on social media. The preview showed a Christmas tree so tall it bent at the ceiling, strands of gold light wrapped from base to top. The caption beneath it made my throat tighten before I even opened it. "Finally know what it feels like to have a real family. Thank you to the best father figure for always being there." I tapped the notification. The album opened. 31 photographs. The first was the dining room. A long table set with white linen and good china candles down the center, poinsettias at each end. I counted 14 people in the second photo. I counted 14 chairs. Diane was in the third picture, standing between Carol and Richard Hess, laughing at something off to the left. Her head tilted back the way she laughs when something actually reaches her. Owen was in the fifth, wearing a red flannel shirt, sitting on Richard's knee with a cookie in his fist. Lily was in the eighth, asleep against Carol's shoulder with tinsel in her hair. I scrolled through all 31 photographs, standing there at the kitchen counter with the empty coffee mug still in my hand. 14 chairs. 14 people. Not one empty seat. The caption was attached to the third photograph, the one with Diane between Carol and Richard. A tag below the text pointed to Richard Hess, best father figure. The words sat on the screen, and my heart squeezed so hard I had to set the mug down before I dropped it. My fingers pressed flat against the countertop. I stood there and breathed the way I learned to breathe on job sites when something went wrong and falling apart was not an option. I was not angry. I want to be precise about that because everything that came after depends on understanding it. Anger is the feeling you get when you believe a mistake has been made. What settled into my chest that night was quieter and heavier than anger. It was recognition. The slow, dull recognition of a man who has been reading the wrong blueprints for a very long time and has finally found the original. I looked at Eleanor's chair at the end of the table. The wood had a small scratch on the left armrest from the time she caught it on the corner of the dishwasher door. I had never fixed it because she said not to. It gives it character, Martin. Not everything needs to be repaired. I pulled out the chair closest to me and sat down. Opened my banking app. The screen loaded and showed me 4 automatic transfers sitting in the scheduled queue the way they had every month for the past several years. My hand did not shake. That surprised me a little. I had expected it to shake. The transfers sat on the screen patient and exact the way numbers always are. I looked at them for a long time. Then I pressed stop on the first one. Then the second. Then the third. The fourth one, the one labeled 529 Education Account. Owen R. Calloway, Lily A. Calloway. I looked at for a long moment, my thumb hovering. Then I set the phone face down on the table. Some things belong to the children. They did not choose any of this. That line had to stay where it was. Outside, the snow had stopped. The backyard was still and white, the workshop roof carrying a clean inch of new snow that would be gone by morning if the temperature rose. Eleanor used to say that the night before Christmas felt different from every other night of the year. Not holier necessarily, just quieter in a way that made things easier to hear. She was right about that. She was right about most things. I sat in the kitchen and listened to the quiet and understood, without having to say it out loud, that the transfers I had just stopped were not the beginning of anything. They were the end of something that had been ending for a long time, without my permission. I was still sitting there when the clock above the stove turned to 9. I turned the phone back over at 9:15. Not because I had changed my mind. I turned it over because I am an engineer, and engineers do not make permanent decisions based on incomplete data. I had stopped 3 transfers. Before I did anything else, I needed to understand exactly what I had been carrying. I got up, went to the small desk in the back hallway where I keep project files, and came back with a legal pad and a pen. The kind of yellow legal pad I have used for 40 years. Eleanor used to buy them in bulk from the office supply store on Central Avenue and stack them on the shelf above my workbench. There were still 4 left. I had not bought a new one since she passed. I sat back down at the kitchen table and I wrote. The first line, Calloway Hess Household Support. Running total. 3 years ago, Diane called me from the parking lot of a Trader Joe's in Silver Lake. It was a Tuesday afternoon in February, and her voice was so tight with crying that I had to ask her 3 times to slow down before I could understand the words. She and Brandon had put in an offer on a 1-bedroom apartment, their first place together, after renting rooms from friends for 2 years. The landlord wanted first month last month and a security deposit up front. $47,000 total. Brandon's savings were thin. Diane's were thinner. They were $41,000 short. I drove to the credit union the next morning. I wired the money before lunch. I wrote that down, security deposit, Silver Lake apartment. February 2022, $47,000. One time. Then the car. Brandon had bought a used SUV 18 months after that, a dark gray Chevrolet Tahoe, the kind with the 3rd row and the towing package. His credit score at the time was low enough that the dealership required a co-signer. He called me on a Sunday evening, already at the dealership, already in the finance manager's office. I could hear the salesman's voice in the background, patient and practiced. I co-signed. The monthly payment was $890. I had been covering it for 24 months. Auto loan co-signer, Chevrolet Tahoe. Starting August 2022. $890 per month. 24 months paid. Total $21,360. Then the insurance. Diane had left her position at a marketing firm in Culver City 18 months ago to freelance full-time. She lost her employer health coverage the day she walked out. She called me that weekend, her voice bright and excited about the new chapter. And then at the end, almost as an afterthought, "I just need to sort out the insurance piece, Dad. It's a little complicated." I called my insurance broker, a woman named Connie, who had handled my small business policy for 11 years, the following Monday. I added Diane as a dependent on my plan without making a production of it. $420 a month. Health insurance, Diane Calloway Hess. Starting June 2023. $420 per month. 18 months paid. Total $7,560. Then the college account. The week Owen was born, I opened a 529 education savings account at Albany Federal Credit Union. I put in $500 to open it and set up an automatic contribution of $800 a month. When Lily arrived 3 years later, I added her name to the beneficiary line the afternoon Diane sent me the birth announcement. I had been contributing for 14 months by Christmas Eve. 529 education account. Owen R. Calloway and Lily A. Calloway. Starting October 2023, $800 per month. 14 months. Current balance approximately $52,400. I set the pen down and looked at the legal pad. The numbers sat there the way numbers always sit, without apology, without explanation, without any interest in how you feel about them. I added the columns twice. The total, not counting the initial deposit, was $87,120 in recurring support over 3 years. Add the $47,000 for the apartment, and the number crossed $134,000. I had never once mentioned any of it at a dinner table, a birthday party, a holiday gathering. Not when Brandon stood in my backyard at a 4th of July cookout 2 summers ago and told his college friends that the Tahoe was the smartest financial decision he had ever made. Not when Diane posted a reel on her business page about building something from scratch with nothing but hustle and belief. Not one single time. My chest tightened until it felt like something inside was being wrung out slowly, the way you wring a wet cloth when you want to get every last drop. I pressed my palm flat against the legal pad, held it there. The paper was cool under my hand, and that helped a little. I thought about the Thanksgiving before last. I had texted Diane in October to ask about plans. She had replied 4 days later. "So crazy busy right now, Dad will circle back." She never circled back. I ate reheated soup at this same table on Thanksgiving Day and watched a football game I had no interest in because the alternative was sitting in the quiet without something to fill it. I had not asked again. I picked up the pen and wrote one more line at the bottom of the page under the total. Not one chair. Then I folded the legal pad in half, set it on the corner of the table where I could see it, and picked up my phone. The banking app was still open. The 3 stopped transfers sat in the queue marked "Cancelled." The 4th one, the education account, was still marked "Scheduled." I looked at Owen's name on the screen, then Lily's. My granddaughter had tinsel in her hair in that photograph. She had been asleep on Carol Hess's shoulder. She did not choose any of this. Neither did Owen. My thumb hovered over the 4th transfer for a long moment. Then I pressed the home button and set the phone face up on the table this time. Face up so I could see if it rang. It did not ring. I sat in the kitchen until the clock read 11:40, and then I went to bed, and the legal pad stayed on the table where the light above the stove could reach it, and the numbers on it did not change, no matter how long I was gone. I woke up at 6:14 on Christmas morning, The way I have woken up every morning for 40 years without an alarm in the dark, with the particular clarity of a man who went to bed with unfinished business. The phone was on the nightstand. I had moved it there before I fell asleep without thinking about it, the way you keep a tool close when you know you are going to need it again. 120 missed calls. 120. In the 4 years since Eleanor passed, I had received maybe 30 calls total that were not from a contractor, a supplier, or Frank DeLuca. 120 in one night was a different kind of number. I got up, put on the coffee, and sat down at the kitchen table. The legal pad was still there where I had left it. The line at the bottom, not one chair, caught the early light coming through the window above the sink. I picked up the phone and read the missed calls in order. Diane 11 times. Brandon 6 times. A number I did not recognize with a Beverly Hills area code 4 times. 2 more numbers I did not recognize, one from a Los Angeles exchange, one from a number with no area code listed at all. Then I read the text messages. Diane 12:07 in the morning. Dad, what is happening? Call me back right now. Diane 12:19. I'm serious. This isn't funny. Call me. Brandon 12:31. Martin. I think there's been some kind of bank error. Can you check your account and call us when you get a chance? Thank you. I read that one twice. A bank error. Brandon had been awake at 12:30 on Christmas morning, watching the transfers not arrive, and his explanation was a bank error. Diane 1:08 in the morning. Dad, please. The mortgage payment didn't go through. Brandon is really stressed. Please just call. Brandon 1:52. Martin, I understand if you're upset about something. Let's talk about it like adults. These kinds of decisions affect more than just you. My jaw tightened when I read that one. I set the phone down on the table, pressed my back against the chair, and breathed through my nose until the tightness in my chest loosened enough to continue. These kinds of decisions affect more than just you. The man had been living in an apartment I funded, driving a truck. I co-signed, insured by a policy I paid for, and eating off a table that existed because I wired $47,000 on a Tuesday morning without being asked twice. And the decision that affected more than just me was the one where I stopped. I picked the phone back up. A number I did not recognize. Beverly Hills area code 217 in the morning. This is Nadine Reyes, Brandon's aunt. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you are hurting people who love you. I hope you're proud of yourself. Nadine Reyes. I had met her once at the wedding for approximately 4 minutes near the shrimp cocktail. Diane 249. Dad, are you okay? I'm actually worried about you. Please just let me know you're safe. I read that one slowly. My throat tightened and my eyes stung in a way I had not expected, not from the words themselves, but from the timing. 2:49 in the morning, 6 hours after the transfers stopped. She had waited 6 hours to ask if I was safe. Every message before that one had been about the mortgage, about Brandon's stress, about decisions that affect more than just me. The concern arrived after everything else had been tried. I knew what that meant. I had spent 30 years reading structural reports, and I knew the difference between a load-bearing wall and a partition. Diane's 2:49 message was a partition. Diane 6:55 in the morning sent while I was still asleep, and I don't know what I did wrong. Do you have any idea what you're doing to this family right now? We have a mortgage due. We have kids. Please. I set the phone face down on the legal pad. The coffee was done. I poured a mug and stood at the kitchen window. The backyard was still the snow from the night before, sitting clean and unbroken on the workshop roof. A cardinal landed on the fence post near the gate, the red so sharp against the white, it looked like something painted there on purpose. Eleanor would have grabbed my arm and pointed at it. She collected cardinals the way some people collect photographs. I drank my coffee and watched the bird until it flew off, and then I rinsed the mug and went upstairs and showered and put on clean clothes, and when I came back down, I sat at the table again and picked up the phone one more time. Diane had texted at 8:47 while I was in the shower. "Dad, I'm flying in tomorrow. Please be home." I read it 3 times. My chest squeezed, not with anger, not even with grief exactly, but with something that sat underneath both of those things, something older and more tired. She was coming. Not to ask why I was hurting. Not to sit across from me and look me in the eye and say, "Dad, talk to me." She was coming because the money had stopped, and someone needed to fix it in person. I understood that. Understanding it did not make my hand stop trembling slightly as I set the phone down. I did not reply. Not to Diane, not to Brandon, not to Nadine Reyes of the Beverly Hills area code who had stood near the shrimp cocktail 8 years ago and had opinions about decisions that affected more than just me. I had nothing to say yet. What I had was a legal pad with numbers on it, and a cardinal that had already flown away, and 3 stopped transfers, and a 4th one I had decided to leave alone. I had a daughter flying in tomorrow. I needed one more day to think clearly before she walked through my door, because once she was in this kitchen, everything would move faster than I was ready for. I put on my coat, walked out to the workshop, and spent Christmas morning doing what I always do when I need to think. Without interruption, I worked with my hands until the thinking sorted itself out. She arrived at 2:15 in the afternoon, in a rental car she had not mentioned, pulling into the driveway without texting first, the way she always used to when she still lived here, and did not think of arrival as something requiring announcement. I was in the kitchen when I heard the engine. I had been standing at the counter for the better part of 10 minutes, doing nothing in particular, which is something I never do, which told me I had been waiting without admitting it to myself. Diane came through the front door carrying 2 grocery bags and a white paper sack from Madison Soup House on Madison Avenue, the Vietnamese place 2 blocks from her old high school that she has loved since she was 15. The smell of the broth reached the kitchen before she did, and something in my chest pulled tight in a way that had nothing to do with anger. She had remembered. In the middle of everything, she had stopped and bought the thing she knew I liked. That almost made it harder. "Dad." She set the bags down and crossed the kitchen and put her arms around me, and I let her, because whatever else was true, she was still my daughter, and I had not seen her since August. She held on longer than usual. Her shoulders were tense under my hands. The muscles along her upper back pulled tight the way they get when someone has been carrying something heavy for too long. When she stepped back, her eyes were red at the rims. Not from crying, from the rawness of someone who had been trying very hard not to cry for several hours and had mostly succeeded. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. She had brought dumplings and 2 containers of pho and a sleeve of sesame crackers, and she arranged everything carefully, the way she arranges things when she needs something to do with her hands. "Owen lost another tooth," she said. A small, real smile crossed her face, the kind that arrives before you decide whether to let it. 9 now. He's keeping track on a chart on his bedroom door. She looked up. "He asks about you. He wanted to know why you didn't call on Christmas." My jaw tightened. I picked up my spoon and said nothing, because what I wanted to say was not something I was ready to say yet. Then Diane set her spoon down and folded her hands on the table, and the temperature of the conversation changed the way temperature changes when a front moves through. "The house," she said. "Do you still have the mortgage documents?" "The originals." My hand stilled around the soup container. "Why?" "I just want to make sure everything is in order. For your sake." She touched my wrist fingers warm from the soup. I worry about you out here alone. I've been managing this house for 31 years, Diane. I know. She pulled her hand back. It might make sense to update some documents. Your will, maybe. Your account information. Just in case. My will is current, I said. Everything is exactly where it needs to be. She nodded, but her eyes moved to the countertop behind me, then to the desk drawer in the hallway, a quick flicker, barely a movement. I had spent 30 years reading rooms. I saw it. Her phone buzzed on the table. Something shifted in her face, a tightening around the eyes, the involuntary response of a person who has been waiting for a specific message and has been anxious about what it might say. She turned the phone face down. She was not reporting to him. She was hiding from him. There is a difference, and I felt the difference in my chest, like a weight shifting, not lighter, but differently placed. We finished the soup. She washed the containers and stacked them by the recycling bin, the way Eleanor used to. Then she stood at the sink with her back to me, hands gripping the counter's edge, knuckles pale. Are you going to turn the transfers back on? There it was, the question underneath all the other questions. I looked at my daughter's back, the tension in her shoulders, the white of her knuckles, the slight tremor she was working to control, and felt a pain that was old and deep and had nothing to do with money. Diane, I said, look at me. She turned. Her eyes were bright with tears. She was refusing to let fall her chin, lifting the way it does when she is bracing for something. I love you, I said. That hasn't changed. Her face crumpled for just a moment before she pulled it back together with the discipline of someone who has been holding themselves upright for days. Then why? Because love and money are not the same thing, I said. And I spent a long time letting myself forget that. She pressed her lips together, nodded once. Her phone buzzed again on the table. She did not look at it. That was the most honest thing she did all afternoon. She left at 5:30. When the taillights disappeared around the corner, I went back inside and stood in the kitchen in the early dark. At 11 o'clock, Frank DeLuca's name lit up on my screen. I picked up on the second ring. His voice told me before the words did that this was not a social call. Martin, he said, I need to tell you something. And I need you to listen before you say anything. Frank DeLuca has never been a man who builds up to things. In 30 years of friendship, he has delivered bad news the way a good contractor delivers a structural report, directly without softening the load-bearing numbers, trusting you to handle what the numbers mean. Eleanor called it blunt. I called it the most valuable quality a person can have. I saw Brandon in October, he said. At Paterno's on Clinton Avenue, a Tuesday morning about 10:30. He was in the back booth with a woman I didn't know. Early 40s, dark hair pulled back, one of those leather portfolio folders on the table between them. The kind people bring to meetings they're billing by the hour. My hand tightened around the phone. What did you hear, Frank? I wasn't trying to listen. I was at the counter waiting on my order. Their booth was close. I heard your name, Martin, clear as anything. And then I heard a word I haven't heard in a professional context in 30 years of accounting. He paused. Not for effect. Frank does not do things for effect. He paused because he was choosing the next word carefully, which he almost never does, which told me everything about how seriously he was taking this. Conservatorship, he said. The word landed in the kitchen like something dropped from a height. I sat with it for a moment, turning it over the way you turn over a piece of material when you're trying to determine whether the damage goes all the way through. Tell me exactly what you heard, I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt, which I was grateful for. I'm Brandon said, And I wrote this down when I got back to my car, he said. The support structure is already in place. We just need to demonstrate that the current arrangement isn't sustainable for him independently. Frank's voice tightened. I went back and forth about calling you for 2 months. Then Diane called me last week to ask how you were doing, and something about the call felt off, and I decided I'd rather be wrong and have you annoyed at me than be right, and have said nothing. I stood up and walked to the window. The dark shape of the workshop sat against the snow in the backyard. My heart was hammering the way it had not hammered since the night Eleanor's doctor called. Frank, what does conservatorship mean in plain terms? Walk me through it. In New York, it's called an Article 81 guardianship, he said. Someone petitions the court and argues that another person can no longer manage their own financial affairs. If the court agrees, they appoint a guardian with legal authority over your accounts, your property, your decisions. You lose the right to manage your own money. The tightening in my chest moved up into my throat. I pressed my free hand flat against the cold glass. They would have to prove I'm incapacitated. They would have to convince a court. There's reason to evaluate you. The bar to open the proceeding is lower than the bar to grant it. And Martin, you're a 64-year-old widower living alone who just made a significant financial decision that upset his family. That is exactly the profile these petitions are built around. Brandon doesn't have the money to fund a legal fight on his own. No, Frank said. He doesn't. Which is worth thinking about. The implications settled over me slowly, completely finding every gap. Richard Hess, Brandon's father, the man who had funded Brandon's first business venture and whose name was on the investment account Brandon referenced every time he talked about his future. How long ago? I asked. October 14th, the Tuesday after Columbus Day. Half my appointments had canceled. October 14th, 10 weeks before Christmas Eve. 10 weeks before Diane posted 31 photographs, where 14 chairs had been arranged for 14 people and not one had my name on it. The caption had not been careless. They had been the visible surface of something built underground for months. The woman, I said. Did she say anything specific? One thing, Frank said. She said, the residency issue is the first thing we need to address. Brandon said, he's been in New York his whole life. Is that a problem? She said, it means California jurisdiction is off the table. We'd have to file here. I put my hand on the back of the kitchen chair. The cold from the window glass was still on my palm, and I focused on that, the specific temperature of it, the solid reality of the chair. That's actually useful information, I said. I thought you might see it that way. A pause. Martin, what are you going to do? I looked at the desk drawer in the hallway. I thought about Owen keeping a tooth chart on his bedroom door. I thought about Lily asking for a hamster every day since Thanksgiving. I'm going to find out exactly how far this has gone, I said. And then I'm going to make sure it can't go any further. We said goodnight. I set the phone on the counter and stood in the kitchen, my jaw tight, my chest aching with the particular pain of a man who has been shown a blueprint for something he never agreed to build. Then I opened the bottom drawers of the desk and started pulling out every document Diane had ever asked me to sign. Before I show you what I found in that drawer, I need to know if you are still with me. If you think Martin should keep digging, comment the number 1 right now. If you think he should walk away and let it go, comment 2. I read every single one, and your answer might surprise you when you see what comes next. Please note, this story contains fictional elements built for reflection and entertainment. Some details may not mirror any specific events. If that is not the content for you, it is okay to step away here. I did not sleep that night. By midnight, I had every document Diane had ever sent me spread across the kitchen table, some in folders, some loose, some still in their original envelopes, with the return address stickers she uses for her catering business in the upper left corner. 18 months of paperwork, insurance forms, school enrollment confirmations she had asked me to co-sign as a secondary contact, a property tax document she had needed my signature on for a refinancing inquiry that never went anywhere. I went through them in order the way I go through a set of blueprints, methodically starting from the foundation and working up. Most of it was exactly what it appeared to be. Then I found the one from April. It was a single page printed on plain white paper, headed with the words, Contact Authorization and Correspondence Acknowledgement, in a font that was professional without being official. Diane had emailed it to me on a Tuesday afternoon with a message that said, Dad, can you sign this and scan it back? It's just for the insurance records, so they have your address on file in case they need to reach you directly. Sorry, it's so boring. I remembered signing it. I remembered thinking it was exactly as boring as she said it was. I read it again now, slowly at midnight in my kitchen, with Frank's words still sitting in my chest like a cold stone. The language was careful, not fraudulent careful. It confirmed that I was aware of Diane's address and contact information. It confirmed that I authorized her to receive correspondence related to certain shared financial arrangements on my behalf when I was unavailable. It was the kind of document that taken alone meant almost nothing. I set it aside and opened my laptop. It took me 40 minutes of searching through old email threads to find what I was looking for. Brandon had a habit of CCing Diane on business correspondence she had mentioned once, that he liked her to be across everything, which at the time I had taken as a sign of partnership. Now I read it differently. In a thread from August, 4 months after Diane had sent me the April document to sign, Brandon had forwarded a message to an email address I did not recognize. The domain was a string of letters that meant nothing to me. But attached to that forwarded message was a scan of the April document. And beneath the scan, Brandon had typed 4 lines. Please find attached the signed correspondence authorization from Martin Calloway, dated April 12th. This confirms that Diane Calloway Hess handles financial correspondence on his behalf when he is unavailable. We believe this, combined with the medical context we discussed, establishes a sufficient preliminary record to support the petition timeline we outlined in our last call. I read it 3 times. My hands were steady, steadier than they had any right to be, and I was grateful for that, because my chest was doing something that had no steadiness in it at all. It felt the way a structure feels in the moment before it fails, that particular vibration, that deep interior stress that has not yet become visible on the surface, but is already past the point of no return. He had taken a document I signed to update an insurance mailing address and reframed it as evidence that Diane managed my financial affairs. He had attached it to a communication with someone he called we. He had referenced medical context. He had used the word petition. I got up from the table and walked to the sink and ran cold water over my wrists the way Eleanor taught me to do when I was overheating on a job site she had read somewhere, that the pulse points cool the body faster than anywhere else. I stood there for a full minute with the water running. Then I went back to the table and kept reading. I found the second thing 20 minutes later, buried in a chain of emails Diane had forwarded to me in the summer, under the subject line FYI insurance stuff, ignore if confusing. She had sent it casually, with no further explanation, the way you forward something you want someone to have access to, without making it into a conversation. At the bottom of the chain, below 3 layers of forwarded headers, was a message Diane had sent directly to the same unknown email address Brandon used. It was 4 sentences long. I understand the timeline you've outlined. I think the approach makes sense given the circumstances. I want to make sure the children are protected throughout this process. Please keep me updated. Beneath those 4 sentences was her full name. Diane Margaret Calloway Hess. Typed, not signed, but typed in the deliberate way people type their full name when they want there to be no confusion about who is speaking. My throat tightened until swallowing took effort. My eyes burned in a way that had nothing to do with the hour or the screen brightness. I pressed my fingers against my eyelids for a moment and breathed through my mouth, slow and deliberate, the way you breathe when you are trying to keep something from becoming something else. She knew, not peripherally, not in the vague way a person knows something they have chosen not to examine closely. She had written 4 sentences to a lawyer she shared with her husband and signed her full name to them. She had expressed agreement with the timeline. She had asked to be kept updated. She had been updated every month for 6 months while she called me on Sunday evenings and asked how the weather was in Albany. I sat at the kitchen table and looked at the papers spread in front of me and felt something move through me that was not anger and was not grief and was not quite either of those things alone. It was the feeling of a man who has been building on ground he trusted and has just discovered the foundation was never what he was told it was. My phone lit up on the corner of the table. A text from my neighbor Ruth Watson, who had lived 2 houses down for 22 years and whose daughter had taken piano lessons from a woman named Cora in the church basement every Saturday for 6 years. "Hey Martin, hope you're doing okay. Carol Hess called me last week, said the family's been a little worried about you since Eleanor passed. Just wanted to check in. You doing all right?" I stared at the message. Carol Hess, who had never once in 10 years called my phone directly. Who had Ruth Watson's number because their daughters had overlapped in the same church piano program 14 years ago. I set the phone down and looked at the ceiling of my kitchen and felt my jaw tighten until the muscles along the sides of my face ached. She was not leaving a digital trail. No emails, no social media posts, nothing that could be screenshot and attached to a legal filing. Just phone calls. Just a warm voice expressing concern to people who had known Martin Calloway for 20 years and would now, in the back of their minds, have a small seed of doubt planted there. I typed back to Ruth. "Doing fine. Thanks for checking. How's the family?" Then I closed my laptop, stacked the documents into 2 piles, the ones that were exactly what they appeared to be, and the ones that were not, and sat for a long time in the kitchen while the clock moved past 2 in the morning and the house made its settling sounds around me. The drawer in the back hallway had 1 more folder in it. I had not opened it yet because something in me had known. I think since Frank said the word conservatorship that what was in that folder was going to be the thing that changed the shape of everything. I got up and went to the hallway and opened the drawer and took it out. The folder was from April, the same month as the document. Inside it was a single printed email chain, 4 pages printed double-sided, the kind of printing job you do when you want a physical record of something you do not entirely trust to stay in your inbox. Diane had sent it to me with a subject line that said FYI legal stuff from Brandon's attorney, probably boring, and a message beneath it that said, "Just keeping you in the loop, Dad. No action needed on your end." I had printed it and filed it without reading it carefully. I remembered doing that. I remembered thinking no action needed and trusting that. I read it carefully now. The chain began with a message from Brandon to an attorney named L. Farrell at a firm I had never heard of in Century City, Los Angeles. It was 3 paragraphs long and clinical in the way that things written for attorneys are clinical, stripped of personality, precise about facts, careful about what it asserted versus what it implied. Brandon outlined his concerns about my ability to manage my financial affairs independently. He referenced my age. He referenced Eleanor's death. He used the phrase increasing isolation and the phrase pattern of erratic financial decision-making, and the phrase family members have expressed concern about his long-term capacity. Family members, plural. The reply from L. Farrell was 2 paragraphs. It outlined the Article 81 petition process in New York in the same tone you would use to outline a construction permit application, step-by-step cost estimate at the bottom timeline, attached as a separate document that was not included in what Diane had forwarded me. And then, at the bottom of the chain below, all of it was Diane's reply. 4 sentences. Her full name typed beneath them. I understand the timeline you've outlined. I think the approach makes sense given the circumstances. I want to make sure the children are protected throughout this process. Please keep me updated. I set the pages down on the kitchen table, pressed both palms flat against the surface. The wood was cool and solid, and I held on to that, the specific physical reality of it, because everything else in the room felt like it was moving at a frequency I could not quite track. My daughter had read a legal plan to strip me of control over my own finances. She had read the words erratic financial decision-making applied to her father, and she had replied with 4 sentences and her full name and a request to be kept updated. I sat in that kitchen for a long time. At some point after 3 in the morning, I put my coat on and walked out to the workshop. Not because I had a plan, because the house had gotten too small for what I was carrying, and the workshop has always been the place where I can set things down without them disappearing. I turned on the single overhead light. The smell of sawdust and machine oil and cold metal, the smell that has lived in this space for 30 years, hit me the way familiar smells hit you when you are not prepared for them. Eleanor used to bring coffee out here on weekend mornings and sit on the stool by the workbench and talk to me while I worked. She said she liked the sound of it. The purposeful sound, she called it. I sat on that stool now and put my elbows on my knees and my face in my hands, and I stayed there for a while. My chest hurt. Not in a medical way, in the way that a chest hurts when something large and heavy has been pressing against it from the inside for longer than the body is designed to sustain. I breathed through it. In through the nose, out through the mouth, the way you breathe when you are at the top of a structure in high wind and you need your hands to be steady. When I lifted my head, my eyes were burning and my face was wet, and I did not entirely remember when that had happened. But I was not surprised. I thought about Diane at 13, sitting at our kitchen table with a math test she had failed and told me she had passed the paper face down under her notebook, unable to look at me. She had cried then, too, not because I had found out, but because the lying itself had been too heavy to carry another day. She had handed it to me voluntarily in the end, set the paper on the table face up, and put her hands in her lap, and waited. I had told her then that the thing about the truth was that it always weighed less after you said it out loud, that the weight was in the carrying, not in the telling. She had nodded and wiped her eyes and said, "That's easy for you to say, Dad. You never have to carry anything." I had laughed. I could still hear the laugh. She had been wrong about that. But I had never told her so because there are things a parent carries that a child is not meant to see, not because they couldn't bear it, but because that is not what the weight is for. I thought about the phone calls every Sunday evening for 6 months. Her voice asking how the weather was in Albany, how the workshop was coming along, whether I had seen the game on Thursday. Normal, warm, careful. The voice of someone who had learned to talk around something large enough to fill a room. I pressed my fist against my sternum hard until the ache organized itself into something I could name. I was angry. But underneath the anger was something older and quieter, something that had been there long before the folder and the emails and Frank's phone call. Grief, maybe. Not for Eleanor, though Eleanor was part of it. Grief for the years of Sunday, calls I had taken at face value. For the dinners and birthdays and holidays I had let slide past without asking the questions I should have asked. For every time I had decided that reaching out would make me a burden, and every time that decision had left another silence between us that neither of us filled, Eleanor would have asked. She had always been the one who asked. 5 years without her, and I had been doing the reaching out for both of us, the financial reaching out. The only kind I knew how to do, while the actual asking, the sitting down and looking someone in the eye and saying, "Tell me what is happening between us," I had let go untended until it had grown into something I could not see over anymore. That did not excuse what was in the folder. It did not excuse the 4 sentences and the full name typed beneath them. But it was true. And I was trying to be honest about what was true, even the parts that landed on my side of the ledger. I reached for the yellow legal pad on the workbench. I keep one out here too for measurements and notes, and I took a pencil from the can by the vise, and I started writing. Not numbers this time. Words. I wrote a sentence and crossed it out. Wrote another and crossed it out. Wrote a third that was too long, and a fourth that was too angry, and a fifth that was closer but still not right. At 4:40 in the morning, I had it down to 4 sentences. 4 is what I could say without my voice going somewhere I did not want it to go in front of other people. 30 years on job sites had taught me exactly where my limits were, and I had learned not to push past them unnecessarily. I folded the paper and put it in the breast pocket of my coat. Then I turned off the workshop light and walked back through the snow to the house. And by the time I came through the kitchen door, the clock above the stove read 5:03, and the sky through the window was beginning to think about morning. I washed my face at the kitchen sink, changed my shirt, put on the coffee. Monday was 2 days away. I needed to make a phone call first thing Monday morning. James Whitfield's office, 3rd floor, Washington Avenue. I had driven past that building 100 times without going in. It was time to go in. The building on Washington Avenue had a directory board in the lobby with white plastic letters pressed into black. Felt the kind of board that belongs in a 1970s office park and has somehow survived every renovation around it. Whitfield and Associates, Suite 301. I took the stairs. James Whitfield was shorter than his voice on the phone had suggested. Compact gray at the temples with the unhurried manner of a man who has spent 30 years listening to people tell him things they have never told anyone else. His office had 2 windows facing the street, a desk that was clear except for a legal pad and a pen, and 3 framed diplomas on the wall behind him that he had positioned low enough that they did not dominate the room. I noticed that. It told me something. "Oh, Mr. Calloway." He stood and shook my hand. His grip was firm without being performative. "Sit down. Tell me what you have." I sat down. I told him what I had. All of it in order, the way I would walk a client through a structural assessment foundation first, then load-bearing elements, then the points of failure. Frank's phone call, the folder, the email chain, Brandon's language, Diane's 4 sentences, Carol's calls to the neighbors, the April document. Whitfield listened without interrupting. He made 2 notes on his legal pad. When I finished, he picked up the April document. I had brought originals, not copies, and read it slowly, his index finger moving slightly along the lines, the way people read when they want to be certain they have not missed anything. Then he set it down and looked at me. "This is unenforceable," he said. "As a power of attorney document, which is what Brandon's attorney appears to be treating it as it fails on its face, under New York general obligations law, a valid power of attorney requires specific statutory language, a notarized signature, and 2 witnesses. This has none of those things. If someone tried to submit this in an Article 81 proceeding, the court would reject it before the first hearing." My shoulders dropped about 1/2 an inch. I had not realized I had been holding them up. "What about the email?" I asked. Diane's 4 sentences. Whitfield tilted his head slightly. In isolation, it demonstrates that she was aware of and did not object to the attorney's timeline. It does not establish legal authority. It might be used to support a narrative about family consensus, but a competent opposing attorney would dismantle that in about 4 minutes. He paused. Do you have a competent opposing attorney? I'm looking at him, I said. The corners of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Then let's talk about what we're going to build. He walked me through it the way a good contractor walks you through a renovation, what needed to come first, what depended on what would take the longest to set properly. The durable power of attorney would designate Frank DeLuca as my legal representative in the event I was incapacitated. It would be executed today, properly notarized with 2 witnesses from Whitfield's office. No ambiguity, no gaps. I want to be clear about something, Whitfield said, leaning forward with his elbows on the desk. A durable POA is one of the strongest protective documents available to you. Once it's in place and properly recorded, any petition claiming you need a court-appointed guardian faces an immediate question. Why, when you have already exercised your legal right to designate your own representative? It significantly raises the burden of proof. Good, I said. The revocable living trust is the second layer. He wrote something on his pad. You transfer your primary assets into the trust. You remain the trustee. You control everything. Nothing changes in your day-to-day life. But the trust structure makes a conservatorship petition substantially more complex to prosecute, because the assets are already in a legal framework with a designated succession plan. And the education account, Whitfield nodded. The 529 is the most straightforward piece. You are the account owner and sole custodian. You have the unilateral right to transfer the account to any participating institution without the consent or notification of the beneficiary's parents. The children remain the beneficiaries. Nothing changes for Owen and Lily. Only the institution and the custodian access controls change. I thought about the balance on the account. $52,400. 14 months of $800 a month, plus the initial contribution, plus interest. It had been growing quietly, the way things grow when you do not interfere with them. Transfer it to Albany Federal Credit Union, I said. Open a new custodian account. I want it completely separate from anything Brandon or Diane can access or claim knowledge of. Done. He wrote it down. I'll have the paperwork ready for your signature this afternoon. We sat with the Article 81 question for a few minutes, the jurisdiction issue that Frank's eavesdropping had surfaced. Whitfield confirmed it without hesitation. You are a New York resident. Full stop. Any petition for guardianship over your person or estate must be filed in New York Supreme Court, under Article 81 of the Mental Hygiene Law. California has no jurisdiction. If Brandon's attorney advised him otherwise, she was either mistaken or she had not yet established your residency status when they met in October. He paused. Either way, it is a significant error in their foundation. 2 significant errors, I said. At least, Whitfield said. Which suggests this was planned by someone with ambition and incomplete legal knowledge, rather than by someone who genuinely understood what they were attempting. That landed somewhere in my chest, with a thud that was almost satisfying. Almost. One more question, I said. The neighbor calls. Carol Hess contacting people in my community and suggesting I have cognitive decline. Is there anything actionable there? Whitfield considered it. Potentially, if it can be demonstrated that the statements were false and made with the intent to harm your reputation or facilitate a legal proceeding against you, defamation, or in the context of the guardianship plan, potentially fraud. But proving intent requires documentation, and you've said she's been careful to leave no written trail. She's been very careful, I said. Then for now, document everything. Every neighbor who mentions receiving a call, every date, every specific thing they report being told. Build the record. He looked at me steadily. You're an engineer, Mr. Calloway. You know how evidence works. I do, I said. The paperwork took 2 hours. I signed the durable power of attorney in front of Whitfield's notary, and 2 witnesses, a woman named Patricia from the front desk, and a paralegal named Doug, who looked like he had not slept since Thanksgiving. I signed the revocable living trust declaration. I signed the transfer authorization for the 529 account. When it was done, Whitfield walked me to the door and shook my hand again. One more thing, he said. Do you want to pursue elder financial abuse charges under New York law? What's been outlined here, the misrepresentation of a document, the coordinated campaign to establish false narrative, the petition to control your assets could constitute financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. I stood in the doorway of his office and thought about Diane's 4 sentences. I thought about Owen's 9th tooth and the chart on his bedroom door. I thought about Lily asking for a hamster every single day. Not yet, I said. I want to give them the chance to stop on their own first. Whitfield nodded once. The kind of nod that means he understood, not that he agreed. I took the stairs back down to the lobby, pushed through the glass door onto Washington Avenue. The January air hit my face, and my chest expanded with it, a full breath, the first one in days that did not catch somewhere in the middle. I sat in my truck for a few minutes before I started the engine. Then I took out my phone and called Diane. She picked up on the second ring, her voice cautious and careful, the way it had been every time we had spoken since Christmas. I let her say hello. Then I said in a tone I had been practicing since 4 in the morning. Diane, I've been thinking. Maybe I reacted too fast. I miss the kids. Can we talk? The silence on her end lasted 3 seconds. Then her voice changed. The caution drained out of it like water from a tipped glass, and what came in underneath was warm and relieved and immediate in a way that told me everything I needed to know about how much of the previous warmth had been manufactured. Dad, she said. Yes, of course. I'm so glad you called. I listened to her voice, and I felt my jaw tighten and my eyes sting, and I said the right things back. And when I hung up, I sat in the parking lot of Whitfield's building on Washington Avenue and looked at the recorder app on my phone. New York is a one-party consent state. I had looked that up at 5 in the morning. The recording was 41 seconds long. I labeled it and saved it to a folder I had created the night before. Then I started the truck and drove home. I have spent 30 years reading blueprints. The skill is not in understanding the lines. Any draftsman can read the lines. The skill is in understanding what the lines do not show. The load that is assumed but not labeled. The joint that is drawn clean but will shift under pressure. The gap between what a document says and what a structure will actually do when weight is applied. Brandon called on Wednesday evening at 6:14. I was in the kitchen making dinner, eggs and toast, the kind of meal you make when cooking feels like too much architecture for one person, when the phone lit up on the counter. I turned the burner down, picked up the phone, started the recorder, and answered. Martin. His voice was warm, calibrated warm, the kind of warmth that has been dialed to a specific setting and held there. Hey. Diane told me you two had a good conversation the other day. I'm really glad. So yeah, she told me the same thing, I said. Listen, I know things have been tense, and I want you to know I hear you. I think we all just want what's best for the family right at the end of the day. I moved the eggs off the heat entirely and leaned against the counter. "That's right," I said. "I've been thinking." A pause, the kind of pause that has been placed deliberately, not arrived at naturally. What if we set up a time to sit down together, all of us? Get everything out in the open. I think a lot of this comes from miscommunication. And I really believe that if we're all in the same room, we can work through it. I let 2 seconds pass before I responded. "That sounds reasonable, Brandon. Too good." The relief in his voice was immediate and unguarded, the first genuinely unguarded thing he had said. Good. Because family is family, right? At the end of the day, that's what matters. Family is family. I wrote that phrase down on the legal pad beside the stove after I hung up. Beneath it, I wrote rehearsed. Beneath that, I wrote the time. The recording was 4 minutes and 22 seconds. I saved it to the folder beside the 41-second one from Monday. Then I stood at the counter and ate my eggs and toast and thought about the particular discipline required to listen to someone perform sincerity at you without letting your face do anything your face wanted to do. Eleanor would have said I was being uncharitable. She would have sat across from me at this table and said, "Martin, people can change, people can be frightened, and still mean well underneath the fear." She was usually right about people. She was occasionally right in the specific way that costs you something later. I called Frank after dinner. "He called," I said. "What did he say?" "Family is family, at the end of the day." I read from the legal pad. "Also, I hear you. Miscommunication. Best for the family." Frank made a sound that was not quite a laugh. That's a lot of language for 4 words of actual content. 4 minutes and 22 seconds, I said. "I have it recorded." "Good." A pause. "Martin, there's a letter on your desk. I dropped it through your mail slot this afternoon. Don't throw it out. It's the contact information for the attorney in Los Angeles. Family law independent practice, no connection to the Hess family." I walked to the front hallway. There was a plain envelope on the floor beneath the mail slot, with my name written on it in Frank's handwriting block. Letters the way he writes when he wants something to be legible above all else. "Got it," I said. "She's good," Frank said. "She handled my niece's custody situation 3 years ago. No nonsense. She'll know what Diane's options are." I held the envelope for a moment. Then I put it in the breast pocket of my shirt next to where the folded legal pad paper had been. "Thank you, Frank." "Don't thank me," he said. "Just don't lose it." The next morning, Thursday, the mail brought something else. A standard business envelope from a lending institution in Columbus, Ohio. The return address printed in the small, practical font of organizations that send a great many letters and have optimized for volume over impression. I opened it at the kitchen table. It was a notice addressed to both me and Brandon Hess as co-signers on the vehicle loan for one 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe account number ending in 4 digits I recognized. The notice informed both parties that the account was 30 days past due. It outlined the late fee that had been applied. It noted that continued non-payment would result in negative reporting to all 3 major credit bureaus and could initiate repossession proceedings. I read it twice, folded it precisely along its original creases, set it on the corner of the table. Brandon had been awake at 12:30 on Christmas morning, watching the transfer not arrive. He had called it a bank error. He had called me 4 days later with his calibrated warmth, and his family is family, and his end of the day. And in all of that time, across all of those conversations, he had not made the payment himself. He had been waiting for me to make it for him. I put the letter in the folder with the recordings and the email printouts and the April document and the 4 pages from the folder I had pulled from the desk drawer at midnight. The folder was getting thick. I had not expected it to get this thick this fast, and I was not entirely sure whether that surprised me or whether some part of me had always known the material was there waiting to be organized. I made a second cup of coffee and sat at the table and looked out the window at the workshop roof where the snow had almost entirely melted in the January thaw, and I thought about the conversation that was coming. Not the one with Brandon, not even the one with Diane. The one I had been preparing for since I folded 4 sentences onto a piece of paper in the workshop at 4 in the morning. The one where I would be in a room with enough people that no one could hang up. 2 days later, the invitation arrived. The invitation was printed on cardstock. The weight of a formal wedding announcement, cream-colored with the Hess name, embossed at the top in a font that cost money to license. Someone had paid for the design. Someone had paid for the printing. Someone had addressed the envelope by hand in ink the color of old copper, and the handwriting was the kind you learn in a private school that still teaches penmanship as a discipline. I set it on the kitchen table and read it twice. Richard and Carol Hess cordially invite Martin Calloway to a belated holiday celebration. January 15th, 7 o'clock in the evening. Beverly Hills. At the bottom in the same copper ink, a handwritten addition, "The children have been asking for you, Martin. We do hope you'll come." I called Frank. He picked up on the first ring, which meant he had been waiting for me to call, which meant he had already been thinking about what I would say when the invitation arrived. Which was the thing about Frank, he did not wait to be surprised. He prepared. "Steve, they want you in the room," Frank said after I read it to him. "Before they file anything. If you walk in there and behave normally, shake hands, eat dinner, talk about the grandchildren, it establishes a record. Cooperative family relationship. No estrangement." Another pause. "It also means that if you say anything that could be interpreted as confused or forgetful in front of 40 witnesses, they have 40 witnesses." "I know," I said. "So you're not going." I looked at the folded paper in my breast pocket. The 4 sentences I had written in the workshop at 4 in the morning 11 days ago. I had been carrying it the way you carry a tool you have not needed yet, but know you will. "I'm going," I said. "I have my own reason to be in that room, Frank. It has nothing to do with theirs." Frank's exhale was long and specific. The exhale of a man who has known me for 30 years and has learned that arguing at a certain point is a waste of both our time. I called Carol Hess that afternoon. She picked up on the second ring with a voice so warm and unhurried, you would have thought she had been sitting by the phone all day, hoping it might be me. Martin." The way she said my name, 2 syllables, even weight genuine pleasure in them. She had a gift for that. In 10 years, I had never once heard Carol Hess say a genuinely unkind thing out loud, and I had watched her rearrange an entire family's holiday schedule with a single group text and come out looking like she had done everyone a personal favor. "I'm so glad you called." "I'd be glad to come, Carol," I said. "Wonderful. Real warmth in it, the kind you earn by being good at this for a very long time. We've always thought of you as family, Martin." I heard that sentence, and I knew exactly what it meant and what it did not mean, and I said thank you, and we said goodbye. And I set the phone down and sat with my hand still on it for a moment, feeling the particular weight of a conversation in which every word was chosen and none of it was a lie, and almost none of it was true. That evening, I organized the documents from Whitfield's office into a thin folder, not thick enough to be conspicuous, thin enough to fit inside the breast pocket of a sport coat without a visible line. I was laying the folder on the desk when my phone lit up with a video call. Owen's face filled the screen, one eye enormous, the other barely visible. The phone held at the angle of a child who has not yet learned that cameras have a correct distance. "Grandpa Marty, are you coming to Grandma Carol's party?" my chest pulled tight and warm at the same time. "I am," I said. "I'll be there." "Good." He nodded with the gravity of an 8-year-old who has given this matter serious consideration. "Because I told Lily you were coming, and she already picked out what she's wearing." I laughed, the real kind, from somewhere below the sternum. "The butterfly dress. Always the butterfly dress." He shifted the phone. Then, before he could stop himself, "Grandpa Marty, is everything okay? Mom said things have been complicated." "I'm working on some things," I said. "That's what I do. I work on things until they're fixed." He thought about this. "Like when you fixed the fence." "Exactly like that." "Okay." He seemed satisfied. Then his expression shifted, the slight frown of a child when something does not add up. "Grandpa Marty, Grandma Carol called Mrs. Patterson next door. She told her you've been forgetting things a lot since Grandma Eleanor died." He frowned. "But you don't forget things. You remembered my dinosaur book from 2 years ago." The warmth in my chest shifted into something heavier. "Owen," I said carefully. "Did Grandma Carol say that to anyone else that you know of?" The second letter from the lending institution arrived on Monday the 13th, 2 days before the party. This one was not a courtesy notice. It was a formal demand letter, heavier paper, bolder font at the top. The kind of letter that lending institutions send when they have moved from reminding you to meaning it. The account was now 37 days past due. The late fees had compounded. Failure to bring the account current within 15 days would initiate repossession proceedings and result in negative reporting across all 3 major credit bureaus. My name was on that loan. My credit score was on that loan. I read the letter standing at the kitchen counter in my coat, because I had just come in from the workshop and had not yet taken it off. I folded it along its original creases, put it in the folder with everything else, and went upstairs to pack a bag. I had a flight out of Albany International at 6:45 the following morning. Eleanor had loved airports. She said they were the only place where everyone was equally displaced. No one was home. No one was settled. And that made strangers kinder to each other. Standing at the gate window at 5:30 in the morning with the folder in my carry-on and 4 sentences in my breast pocket, I thought maybe she had a point. The flight was 5 hours and 40 minutes. I spent the first hour thinking about nothing in particular. I spent the second reading through the folder one more time, not because I had forgotten anything, but because there is a difference between knowing something and having it organized in your body, ready to come out in the right order. By Nevada airspace, I had read everything twice and put the folder away. The 405 moved the way. The 405 moves on a Wednesday afternoon, slowly and without apology. Beverly Hills arrived gradually, then completely. The streets widened. The hedges got taller. I had the driver drop me 2 blocks from the Hess address. I wanted to walk the last part. I wanted the specific feeling of arriving under my own power. The Hess house was white stucco, with a red tile roof, the garden professionally lit agave and bird of paradise thrown into sharp relief against the darkening sky. 40 people, Frank had said. Enough to matter. I straightened my jacket and pushed through the gate. Richard Hess crossed the room the moment I came through the door. His grip was firm, and he held it a beat longer than a handshake requires, looking at me directly. The way people look when they are not managing an impression, but simply seeing you. "Martin, I'm glad you came." "Thank you for the invitation," I said. "You're up front with me tonight." Owen came around the corner at a dead run in his socks and hit me at approximately hip-height, arms going around my waist, face pressing into my coat. His grip was tight in the particular way of a child who has decided this moment is worth the correction he will receive later. "Grandpa Marty." His voice was muffled by my coat. "I told Lily you were coming. She's been waiting since 4 o'clock." I put my hand on the back of his head. He was taller than I remembered. Lily was across the room in the butterfly dress, yellow with blue wings, the kind of dress that announces itself. When she saw me looking, her whole face went up. She ran across the room with her arms already open and put both hands on my face and looked at me with the serious intensity of a child conducting an inspection. "Grandpa Marty," she said. "You came." "I came," I said. She patted my cheek once satisfied and ran back toward the food table. I stood up. My knees ached. I pressed my hand briefly against my sternum where the 4 folded sentences sat and thought about Eleanor, who would have been the first person through that door. Richard steered me toward the main table. Carol was already there with a laminated seating chart, the kind of preparation that announces itself. She looked up, read the situation in 1 second, Martin. At the main table, Richard's hand on his elbow, and set the chart face down on the tablecloth without a word. That was the first time I had ever seen Carol Hess set something down without having decided to. I sat in the chair Richard indicated, hands flat on the white linen, folder in my pocket. 4 sentences in my pocket. Recorder 1 tap from running. I had been ready since 4 in the morning 11 days ago in a workshop that smelled like sawdust and machine oil and January cold. Brandon set his drink down and turned toward the room and saw me. Brandon recovered in approximately 2 seconds. That is not nothing. Most people, when they walk into a room and find something they did not expect at a table they arranged, take longer than 2 seconds to recover. Brandon straightened his jacket, said something to the 2 men beside him that made them laugh, and then crossed the room toward me, with his hand extended, and his face set in the expression of a man who has decided that whatever this is, he can manage it. "Martin." His handshake was firm. His eyes were reading me the way a man reads a room when he needs to know what he is working with. "You made it. Good to see you." "Good to be here," I said. He held the handshake 1 beat too long, not the way Richard had held it, which was the hold of a man who meant something by it, but the hold of a man who is deciding how much he knows. Then he released it and turned to the 2 men in sport coats. "This is Martin Calloway, Diane's father." They shook my hand, and I filed their faces away. Brandon moved back toward the bar. He did not look over his shoulder. That was discipline. Carol materialized at my elbow 30 seconds later with sparkling water and the smile she reserves for situations she is actively managing. "Martin, I'm so glad you're here. You look wonderful." "Thank you for having me, Carol," I said. "This is where you belong." She said it with such warmth that someone standing 3 feet away would have believed every syllable. Then she drifted back toward the other end of the table, positioning herself between me and the kitchen door. Diane appeared at my left shoulder. She moved quietly. She had always moved quietly, the way people move when they have learned that being unnoticed is sometimes the safest way to be in a room. "Dad, can I talk to you for a second?" She steered me toward the window. Her voice stayed below the noise of the room. "My insurance card got rejected at the clinic 2 weeks ago," she said, not looking at me, looking at a point just past my shoulder, the way people look when they are trying to hold themselves together while delivering something that has been sitting in them too long. The policy had been canceled in early January. I asked Brandon about it. Her jaw tightened. "He told me you were bluffing. His exact words, your dad would never actually go through with it." "He's not built that way." My chest tightened. Not with anger at her. With the specific ache of watching someone arrive slightly too late at a truth they could not have been told and had to find themselves. I mailed the cancellation in early January, I said. Certified mail to both addresses. The carrier also sent a COBRA notice that's a federal requirement. 60 days to elect continuation coverage. Brandon received that notice too. Her nostrils flared. He never told me. I know, I said. Something moved across her face that I had not seen since she was 16, pure, unguarded recognition. The first time a truth lands completely. After that, it changes into grief or anger, but the first time it is just that. He let me think you were the one who... Diane. I kept my voice even. You needed information. You didn't have it. That wasn't your fault. Her chin trembled. She pressed her teeth together, balled her hands into fists against her thighs. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. Not here, I said quietly. We'll talk outside. Tonight. She nodded once. Sharp controlled, straightened her shoulders, and walked back toward the center of the room with the composure of a woman who has spent years learning how to cross a room while falling apart inside. I stood at the window until my throat stopped being tight. Brandon was already looking away, drink held loosely easy in the room he had designed. He had placed his hand on Diane's shoulder earlier, briefly, casually, the way you place your hand on something that belongs to you. I had noted it then. I noted it again now. Richard appeared at my elbow. About 5 minutes. Brandon's going to say a few words. I sat back down. Hands flat on the white linen. Brandon moved to the center of the room. He did not use a microphone. The room was sized for a voice confident it would carry. His voice was warm and measured the controlled rhythm of someone who has rehearsed without wanting it to show. He thanked Richard and Carol by name. He called Diane the strongest woman he had ever known. He looked at Owen and Lily and said everything he had built was for them. He did not say my name. Not once. Then he raised his glass. Family is not about obligation. It's not about who's been around the longest or who picks up the biggest tab. Light laughter. Family is about who chooses to show up. I looked at the folder against my ribs. I set my napkin beside my plate the way you set a napkin when you have finished with it, not the way you throw it down. I stood up. Brandon, I said. May I say something? 40 people turned. Brandon looked at me across the room, and for exactly 1 second, I saw something move behind his eyes that was not the managed version of Brandon Hess. Then the managed version came back. Of course, Martin, he said. Please. Carol's hand tightened around her wine glass. I saw it from across the room. I walked to the microphone. Before I tell you what Martin did next, I want to hear from you. At this point in the story, what would you have done in that room? Comment speak if you would have stood up. Comment leave if you would have walked out quietly. Your answer tells me everything about who you are, and I mean that as a compliment. A quick note: portions of this story include fictional elements added for educational and entertainment purposes. Not every detail reflects a specific lived experience. If this is not for you, no hard feelings. You can step away right here. The microphone gave a short pop when I reached it. Someone near the back of the room said something I did not catch. Then the room went quiet in the particular way it goes quiet when 40 people have simultaneously decided that something is about to happen, and they do not want to miss it. I did not look at my notes. I had read them enough times that they lived somewhere below conscious thought, the way a set of measurements lives in a carpenter's hands, after enough repetition that he no longer needs the tape. I looked out at the room. 40 people looking back. Richard at the main table with his hands folded in front of him. Carol beside him with her wine glass still in her grip. Diane near the window where I had left her, her arms crossed over her chest, her chin up. Brandon standing 6 feet to my left, his jacket still unbuttoned, his expression arranged into something that was meant to look like patience. I put my hand on the edge of the podium. Not because I needed the support. Because it was there and solid, and sometimes that is enough. "My name is Martin Calloway," I said. "I am Diane's father. I am Owen and Lily's grandfather." My voice held. I had not been certain it would. I was grateful that it did. "Brandon is right that family is about showing up," I said. "I want to tell you about the ways I have been showing up, because I think some of that information is relevant to the conversation we are all apparently having tonight." I heard Brandon shift his weight behind me. I did not turn around. 3 years ago, I wired $47,000 to cover the security deposit on the apartment in Silver Lake, where my daughter and son-in-law live. That was a one-time payment. I did not mention it at dinner. I did not mention it at any holiday gathering. I did not mention it to anyone in this room before tonight. The quiet in the room deepened. It is a specific thing the way silence changes texture when a room full of people stops processing and starts listening. 2 years ago, I co-signed the auto loan on the Chevrolet Tahoe in the parking lot outside. The monthly payment is $890. I have been making that payment for 24 months. I received a letter this week informing me that the account is 37 days past due, which means the payment I stopped making on January 1st has not been replaced by any other payment. My credit score is attached to that loan. I paused, not for effect, to let the numbers settle the way numbers need to settle. 18 months ago, I added Diane to my small business health insurance policy. The monthly cost is $420. I canceled that coverage in early January. The carrier sent a COBRA notice to both addresses on file. I understand the notice was not shared with my daughter. Across the room, Diane's arms tightened across her chest. Her jaw was working. She was not looking at Brandon. 14 months ago, I opened a 529 education savings account for Owen and Lily at Albany Federal Credit Union. I have been contributing $800 a month. The current balance is $52,400. That account has not been touched. It is still growing. It will keep growing. That money belongs to Owen and Lily, not to the adults in this room, including me. I took the folder from my inside breast pocket, set it on the podium without opening it. In October of last year, a friend of mine was having coffee at Paterno's on Clinton Avenue in Albany, New York, and overheard a conversation between my son-in-law and a woman carrying a legal portfolio. The word he heard clearly and in context was conservatorship. I let that word stand alone in the room for 1 full second. That is a legal proceeding in which a family member petitions a court to declare that another person cannot manage their own affairs. I am 64 years old. I live alone. I recently made a significant financial decision that my son-in-law disagreed with. I understand how those facts can be assembled into a narrative. Brandon's breathing had changed behind me. I could hear it, the slight shift in rhythm that happens when a person's body understands something before their face is ready to show it. I also know that the proceeding would have to be filed in New York, where I am a resident, and that the document my daughter was asked to sign in April, which was presented to her as an insurance form, is not valid as a power of attorney under New York law, because it was not notarized and did not contain the required statutory language. I set my hand flat on the folder. I have documentation of all of this. I am not here tonight to file a lawsuit. I am not here to humiliate anyone. I looked at the room, at the faces, some unreadable, some not. I came tonight because this is the only room where nobody can hang up on me. I stepped back from the microphone, walked back to my chair at the main table, sat down, put both hands flat on the white linen. 4 seconds of silence. Then Richard Hess reached into the breast pocket of his jacket and took out his phone. Richard did not stand up dramatically. He pushed his chair back the way a man pushes a chair back when he has made a decision, and the decision is not going to change slowly with the particular deliberateness of someone who has no interest in being stopped. He stood. He was taller than I remembered. He had the phone in his right hand, and he held it at his side for a moment, looking at his son across the room. Brandon's expression did not break, but something beneath it shifted the way a wall looks the same from the outside in the moment before the interior load fails. "I want to read something," Richard said. His voice was not loud. It did not need to be. The room had been holding its breath since Martin sat down, and a quiet voice in a held-breath room carries further than a shout. "Brandon sent me this in May, 7 months ago." He looked down at the phone. Read. "Dad Martin's been having some memory issues since Eleanor passed. We're handling it quietly as a family. Better not to overwhelm him with large gatherings, it tends to confuse him. We'll keep you posted." He lowered the phone. The room did not make a sound. Not the rustle of a napkin, not the clink of a glass. 40 people sitting completely still. Richard looked at his son. "I believed you," he said. "I stopped including Martin in things because I believed you were protecting him." His voice was even, which made it worse. Anger would have been easier to absorb. This was something quieter, the specific tone of a man who has discovered that a person he trusted used that trust as a tool. "You used me to build a story about this man." Brandon's jaw tightened. "Dad, there's context you don't have." "Brandon." One word. Flat and final, the way a door sounds when it closes on something that will not be reopened tonight. Brandon stopped. Richard looked at me. Something in his face moved, not quite apology, because apology was not large enough for what he was carrying, but the expression of a man trying to hand back something he should never have been given in the first place. "Martin, I owe you an answer for every invitation that didn't go out." "You didn't know," I said. "But that's not an excuse." He said it without hesitation, the way people say things they have already decided about. Then he turned back to Brandon, and his voice dropped into the register that fathers use when they are not performing for a room, but meaning every word for one person. "I will not fund any legal action against this man. Not a conservatorship filing, not a consultation, not $1, not one phone call to any attorney on your behalf. If you move forward with any piece of this, you do it without my name and without my money." Brandon's face stayed controlled. His hands were less cooperative, the one holding his drink had tightened until the knuckles had gone pale against the glass. "That's not a fair—" "It is exactly fair," Richard said. "Sit down." Carol stood up. Her voice was smooth and immediate, the voice of a woman who has redirected 100 difficult moments and knows exactly how to begin. "I think perhaps we should all take a moment and—" "Carol." Richard did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Sit down." 40 years of Carol Hess managing every room she walked into, and Richard had stopped her with 4 words and a tone she had apparently never heard him use before. She sat. The 2 men in sport coats near the bar were already angling their bodies toward the exit. The couple at the far table had stopped pretending to look at their phones. Near the side table, Owen had gone very still in the way children go still when they understand that the adults around them are doing something that matters. I did not watch Brandon. I watched Diane. She had been standing at the window since I had sat down, her arms still crossed, her chin still up. When Richard finished speaking, she uncrossed her arms. Her hands dropped to her sides. Her fingers spread open and then closed again slowly, like someone testing whether the feeling has come back to them after a long time. Then she turned and walked toward the back of the room, moving past the side tables, past Owen, who reached out and touched her arm as she passed past the catering station and through the door that led to the back of the house. She did not run. She did not make a sound, but her shoulders from behind were shaking. I stood up from the table. "Excuse me," I said to no one in particular, and followed her. The parking lot behind the Hess house was lit by a single overhead light that turned everything the color of old paper. Diane was standing next to the Tahoe, the dark gray Chevrolet, with the towing package, the one whose loan payment was 37 days past, due, the one whose monthly note I had been covering for 2 years, without mentioning it at a single dinner table. She had her back to the house, and her arms wrapped around herself, and she was not crying anymore. The crying had stopped somewhere between the back door and the parking lot, replaced by the particular stillness of someone who has run out of the energy that crying requires. I stood a few feet away and waited. She spoke first. "Brandon told me you were declining." Her voice was flat, not cold, just emptied out. "After Eleanor died, he said he'd noticed things. Confusion, he called it. Forgetting appointments. He said he was worried that the family was worried that we needed to think about your long-term well-being." She laughed once, a short, humorless sound that had nothing of laughter in it. I believed him. I wanted to believe him, because if I believed him, then what we were doing, wasn't it felt like protection instead of what it actually was. I did not speak. She was not finished. Then he told me that if I didn't cooperate, if I pushed back, if I told you, if I reached out to anyone outside the family, he would file for divorce. And he would use his family's attorneys. Her jaw tightened. He told me I would lose Owen and Lily. He said it very calmly. The way he says things he has thought about in advance. She pressed her lips together. I didn't know the court doesn't work that way. I had never talked to a lawyer who worked for me. I only knew what he told me, and what he told me was that I would lose my children. Her voice broke on the last word. Not fully, just a crack at the edge of it, the sound of something under more pressure than it was built to hold. Her hands gripped her own arms hard enough that her fingers went white. I chose the path of least resistance, she said. Every single day for 6 months I chose it. I know that is not an excuse. I am not asking you to excuse it. I looked at my daughter. At the parking lot light making her look older than she was. At the hands gripping her own arms, the way people grip themselves when they need something to hold on to, and there is nothing else available. Diane, I said. You needed a lawyer, not Brandon's family's lawyer, your own. She nodded. One short, sharp nod. I reached into my jacket pocket and took out the piece of paper Frank had put through my mail slot 2 weeks ago, the one I had been carrying since then, in the pocket closest to my chest, behind the 4 sentences, in the place where I keep things I know I am going to need. A name, a phone number, a firm in Los Angeles, independent practice, no connection to the Hess family. Call her Monday morning, I said. She's expecting to hear from you. Diane took the paper with both hands, looked at it. Her chin trembled once, and she pulled it back under control. Then I took out the envelope from my inside breast pocket. White, letter-sized, unsealed. Inside it was a single printed page, the new account information for the 529 at Albany Federal Credit Union. Account number, both children's names, current balance, the credit union's direct phone number. You can call them anytime, I said. They will read you the balance and answer any question you have. You do not need my permission. You do not need to ask me first. That account belongs to Owen and Lily. She took the envelope. held it against her chest with both hands on top of the piece of paper with the lawyer's number. Her eyes were bright and glassy, and she was blinking more than she needed to. "Are we going to be okay, Dad?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. I looked at her for a long time, long enough that she would know the answer was not going to be what she most needed to hear, but that it was going to be true. "Not yet," I said. "But I think we're starting from an honest place for the first time. That's the only foundation that holds." She flinched. I let her. Then she stepped forward and put her arms around me the way she had not done since she was a teenager, not the careful, managed hug of an adult daughter maintaining appropriate distance, but the real kind, the kind that does not calculate anything. Her face pressed into my shoulder, and her whole body shook once hard, and then she pulled it back together by sheer will and stepped away and pressed the back of her hand against her mouth. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry, Dad." "I know," I said. We stood there in the parking lot under the single overhead light until she had steadied herself. Then she went back inside, and I stayed where I was for a few minutes, my hand in my jacket pocket where the envelope had been. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I did not have saved. "Martin. Coffee before your flight tomorrow, just the two of us. Richard." I read it twice. Then I put the phone back in my pocket and looked up at the Beverly Hills sky, the particular dark of a sky with too much light beneath it to show stars, and breathed in the cold air that California pretends it does not have in January. The folder was lighter now. The 4 sentences had been said. The envelope had been delivered. I was not done. But the part I had come here to do was done. Richard was already there when I arrived. A corner table at a place called Huckleberry on Wilshire, the kind of cafe that has been in the same spot long enough that the neighborhood has changed around it 3 times, and it has not noticed. He had coffee waiting. Black, no sugar, which meant Diane had told him at some point how I take it, which meant something I did not examine too closely, because examining it too closely would have made it harder to sit down. He stood when I came in. We shook hands. Sat. "I owe you more than coffee," he said. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "You didn't know. I should have asked." He wrapped both hands around his mug. His knuckles were large and work-roughened in a way that did not match Beverly Hills. I had not noticed that before. "Brandon told me things, and I accepted them because he is my son, and I wanted to believe he was handling his family well." He looked at the table. "That is not the same as not knowing. That is choosing not to look." I drank my coffee and let that sit where he had put it. "The 2 men from last night," he said. "The ones near the bar. They called Brandon this morning and withdrew from his commercial project. Both of them." He said it without satisfaction, not delivering news, but delivering information the way you hand someone a document they need, regardless of how it feels. "I did not ask them to do that. I want you to know that." "I believe you," I said. We sat for a while without speaking, which was different from the silences that had filled the previous weeks. This was the silence of 2 men who had arrived at the same place from different directions and were taking a moment to get their bearings. "How's Diane?" I asked. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Carol and I were going to give her room, whatever she decides." He looked up. "She called an attorney this morning, someone independent. She told me when she came to get the kids." I nodded. He picked up his mug and set it down without drinking. "Martin, I'd like to come fishing with you sometime. Frank mentioned you go out to the reservoir." I looked at him. He was not performing the offer. He was making it the way men make offers when they mean them and do not know how else to say the thing underneath. "First Saturday of the month," I said. "Frank brings coffee that is too weak. You're welcome to do the same. Something in his face relaxed. Not a smile, exactly, more like the release of something that had been held too long. We finished our coffees, shook hands at the door. I took the car back to LAX and flew home to Albany. 3 weeks later, on a Wednesday afternoon, my phone rang in the workshop. Owen. I set down the wrench I had been holding and answered. Grandpa Marty. His voice was careful in the way the voices of children are careful when they have been thinking about something for a while before saying it. Are you really my grandpa? Like for real, because some stuff happened and Mom explained things and I needed to hear it from you. My chest tightened and loosened at the same time. Yes, I said. I am your grandfather. How do I know for sure? Go somewhere you can look at your phone screen. I heard him move. Then quiet. I went to my photo gallery and scrolled back 8 years to a folder I have not opened often but have never deleted. Cedars Sinai Medical Center. Owen, 6 hours old, head still slightly cone-shaped, the way newborns are wrapped in the standard issue hospital blanket, with the pink and blue stripes that every hospital in America uses, as if newborns need consistency above all else. Me in the plastic chair beside the bassinet, my reading glasses pushed up on my forehead, leaning over him with both elbows on my knees. The timestamp in the corner read 6:47 in the morning. Eleanor had been gone 3 years by then. Diane had placed him in my arms in that blue chair, and I had sat there until a nurse came and told me they needed the room for another family. I had not wanted to leave. I sent him the photo, a long quiet on the line. I could hear him breathing. Then the specific sound of a child looking at something that is rearranging something else inside him. You were really there, he said. I was the second person to hold you, I said. Your mom was first. That's the right order. Another pause. Okay, he said. Then before he could think about it or stop himself, Grandpa, I pressed my free hand flat against the workbench. The wood was solid and cool, and I needed something solid and cool in that moment because my eyes were burning and my throat had closed down to about half its normal diameter. And I was 64 years old standing in a workshop in Albany, New York, and my grandson had just said a word I had not heard directed at me in 13 months. I'll be there Wednesday, I said when I could trust my voice again. Which Wednesday? He asked. Every one, I said. The first Wednesday I drove to Silver Lake. I got there 12 minutes early and sat outside for 11 of those minutes, because I did not want to be the grandfather who shows up before the children are ready and makes everything feel like an obligation. On the 12th minute, I got out and rang the bell. Owen answered in his soccer cleats, wearing them inside on the hardwood floors, which I chose not to comment on. Lily was behind him in the butterfly dress, the yellow one with blue wings, the same one from the party. She was wearing it on a Wednesday in February because she had decided it was appropriate, and nobody in that apartment was in a position to argue. You came, Owen said, as if there had been any question. I said I would, I said. Diane was in the kitchen. She looked tired in a way different from the tired she had carried into the Beverly Hills parking lot. That had been the tired of fear and concealment. This was the tired of someone doing something difficult and necessary and not yet far enough along to see the other side. Dad. She hugged me at the kitchen doorway. A real hug, not managed, not calculated. Thank you for coming. I said every Wednesday, I said. That's what every means. She laughed, small and genuine and slightly surprised by itself, the way laughs are when they arrive before you have decided to let them. She pressed the back of her hand against her eyes for a moment, then went back to the counter. I took Owen and Lily to the park at the end of the block. Owen spent 40 minutes trying to teach me a step over, a move requiring footwork and timing I have never possessed and did not acquire at 64. I attempted it 4 times. I fell once. Lily laughed so hard she sat down on the grass and held her stomach, which was, I decided, the best possible outcome. On the walk back, Owen put his hand in mine, the way children do when they have stopped thinking about it. Not because they decided to, but because you are there, and the hand is there, and it is the natural thing. I held on. The Wednesdays accumulated the way good things accumulate quietly, without announcement, each one slightly more ordinary than the last, which is how you know something has become real rather than provisional. In March, Diane filed the paperwork. She called from her car in the parking structure beneath her commercial kitchen space. "I filed today," she said. Her voice was even. Not happy, not devastated, the voice of someone who has made a decision they are not going to unmake. "I wanted you to hear it from me." "How are you?" I asked. "I don't know yet. I think I'm going to be okay." A pause. "The lawyer you sent me to, she's really good, Dad." "Frank has good judgment," I said. "Tell him thank you." "Tell him yourself. He's coming fishing Saturday." She laughed the same surprised laugh from the kitchen doorway. I was beginning to think that was her real laugh, the one that had been there all along underneath the careful management. Frank brought weak coffee in April and caught 3 fish to my 1, which he accepted with the modesty of a man who has been quietly better at things than you for 30 years. Richard came in May. His coffee was somehow weaker than Frank's, which I had not thought possible. He sat in the boat 4 hours, caught nothing, and talked about Owen in the careful way of a grandfather navigating new territory who wants to get it right. "He's a good kid," Richard said. "He is," I said. "Takes after his mother." A pause. "And his grandfather." I let that sit on the water between us and watched my line. 2 weeks before Father's Day, Diane called on a Tuesday evening. "Dad, are you free Sunday the 15th noon? Bring nothing." A pause. "Owen has been working on something for you? Very serious about it? Either wonderful or it involves glitter." "Either is fine," I said. "I invited Richard," she said carefully. "He's been good to us. The kids love him. Is that okay?" I thought about a man sitting in a boat in May, not catching anything and not minding. "Yes," I said. "That's okay." "And Frank?" Owen specifically requested Frank. "Frank will be there," I said. "He'll probably bring something inappropriate and the kids will love it." "Good." Then quietly, "I'm glad you're coming, Dad." "Diane," I said. I said every Wednesday, Sunday is easier. She was still laughing when she hung up. I set the phone on the workbench. Outside the workshop window, the Albany backyard was green the way upstate New York gets in early June, saturated, almost excessive before summer heat flattens it. Eleanor's chair at the kitchen table had been empty for 4 years and 2 weeks. I thought about what it might feel like to sit at a table where someone had put your name on a card before you arrived. 2 weeks before that Father's Day, I had signed a month-to-month lease on a furnished studio in Los Feliz, 3 blocks from the Silver Lake border, close enough to the park at the end of Owen's block that I could walk there in 12 minutes if the light was right. Albany would still be home, but every Wednesday needed to be drivable, not possible. I locked up the workshop and went inside to figure out what you wear to Father's Day when Father's Day has finally decided to find you again. I got there at 11:58, 2 minutes early. I had aimed for 5, but hit every green light on Silver Lake Boulevard, which felt like the neighborhood was trying to tell me something. Diane opened the door before I knocked. She was wearing her catering apron, the good one, the navy blue one. She saves for events, which meant she had been cooking since morning and was not going to apologize for it. "You're early," she said. "I'm 2 minutes early," I said. "That's early." But she was smiling when she said it, and she stepped back to let me in. The apartment smelled like roasted chicken and something with garlic and the particular sweetness of a dessert that has been in the oven long enough to have filled the whole space. Frank was already at the table with a cup of coffee, looking pleased with himself, in the way Frank looks when he has arrived somewhere before the host expected him. Richard was on the couch with Lily on his knee, reading her something from a book she had brought him with the instruction that he had to read it in a funny voice. Owen was nowhere visible, which meant he was in his room with whatever the secret project was. I sat down across from Frank. He pushed a mug toward me. I tasted it. "Frank." "I know," he said, unapologetic. "This is weaker than the reservoir coffee." I was in a hurry. Richard looked up from the book. "It's worse than mine." "Significantly," I said. Lily slid off Richard's knee and crossed the room and climbed into my lap, without asking which is the correct approach. She smelled like the crayon she had apparently been using on her hands, as well as the paper she was supposed to be using it on. She settled herself with the authority of a 5-year-old who has identified the best seat in the room and claimed it. Then Owen appeared in the hallway doorway. He was holding something behind his back. His face had the particular expression of an 8-year-old managing significant information, chin up, shoulders back, trying very hard to look like nothing was happening. "Okay," he said. "So, I made something. And Lily helped. Well, I helped Lily make something. It was her idea." He looked at his sister. "Tell him." Lily turned in my lap and looked at me with great seriousness. "I made it," she said. "Owen did the letters because I don't know all the letters. But I did the drawing." She pointed at Owen. He came forward and set it on the table in front of me. A piece of construction paper, blue, folded in half. The edges were not quite straight, cut with safety scissors by a 5-year-old who had her own ideas about straight lines. On the front, in crayon red, thick, slightly uphill, Grandpa Marty. Beneath the letters was a drawing. A tall figure, round head, stick arms, standing next to a building with many small squares for windows. I looked at it for a long time. "That's you," Lily said helpfully. "Building a house, because that's what you do." "It is," I said. My voice did not entirely cooperate with me, and I let it go where it needed to go. "Do you like it?" I looked at the card, at the red crayon letters slightly uphill, at the building with its small square windows, at my name, mostly right, written by someone who had learned the letters for the specific purpose of getting them down on paper for me. "It's the best thing anyone has made me in a long time, Lily." She patted my arm once satisfied and turned back to the room. Diane set the food on the table. We sat 6 of us, the right number for this table in this apartment on this particular Sunday in June. Nobody made a speech. Nobody raised a glass. Frank told a story about a client that was probably only partially true. Richard laughed at the right moments. Owen ate 2 portions of everything and did not comment on it. I sat at the end of the table nearest the kitchen door. The end where you can get up and refill everyone's water without making anyone move. The end where Eleanor used to sit for 28 years because she said cold air follows a man in from the shop, and she wanted to be close to the stove. The card was propped against my water glass. I had not put it there. Someone had put it there before I sat down. Someone had thought about where I would be sitting and had placed it there in advance before I arrived, so that it would be waiting for me when I got to the table. I keep coming back to that. Not Beverly Hills. Not the microphone. Not the folder or the 4 sentences or the legal pad with its column of numbers. The card. The one that was already there when I walked in. The one with my name on it because someone counted, and when they counted, they put me in the number. Here is what I know after a year of learning it, the hard way: you are allowed to love people and also require that they treat you like you exist. Those 2 things are not in conflict. You can hold both. And if no one is putting your name on the table, you are allowed to stop setting it for everyone else. There is something I want to say before I go. I spent years pouring money into a family that had quietly stopped making room for me, and I never once asked why. I told myself I was being generous. Looking back, I was being afraid. Afraid that if I asked, the answer would be exactly what it was. Do not do what I did. Do not confuse financial support with love. Do not stay quiet so long that the silence becomes the whole relationship. I learned this too late, and it cost me years I cannot get back. I believe, and this is one man's view, that family drama revenge is never about the money. It is about being counted. About someone putting your name on the list before the event, not after. God gave me 2 grandchildren who still reach for my hand. That is enough. If this family story's revenge found you somewhere true tonight, if you have been the one pouring in while quietly disappearing, leave a comment. Tell me where you are in your own story. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you never miss what comes next. Every family drama revenge story we tell here is for people who stayed silent too long and finally decided to stop. These family stories, revenge stories, carry fictional elements built entirely for reflection and connection. Not every detail mirrors lived experience. If this is not the content for you, please find something that serves you better. No judgment here. And if you are still with me at the very end of this family drama revenge, thank you. Truly. Thank you for sitting with me all the way through. Family Stories Revenge has many faces. Tonight you saw one of them. See you in the next story.